welcome back to Memories of a Musician. I'm your host, Vito DeSalvo. Once again, we have a great program for you this evening. The wonderful musician, Dr. John Pastin, and also Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Navy, retired. Spent 30 years. You're going to hear a lot about this later on, about his time in the Navy. He spent 30 years as a musician and bandmaster in the U.S. Navy band. And we're gonna hear a lot of interesting things about his time in the Navy. And he's also, now that he's retired, back in Pennsylvania, back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and performing a lot around town with local bands and things. So anyhow, we're going to hear a lot about it. And I want to get right to it because there's a lot to talk about here. So the first thing I want to do is I have a montage I put together, and I want to play this. So this will give you some sense, some pictures of John and different stages of his life, his career, his musical career. And you'll hear him conducting these pieces that you're hearing. He's conducting the U.S. Navy Band in Washington, D.C. So here you go. John Pastin. And there you go. Lieutenant Commander John Pastin. Impressive music. I remember playing Tritico when I was at Duquesne University School of Music with our symphony band. That was a great piece. It's a very, very inspiring piece of music. I want to give you some background now about John Pastin. John Pastin retired in May 2017 as the Dean of the College of Performing Arts at Rowan University, Glassboro, New Jersey, where he led the departments of music, theater, dance, and art. In September 1998, following a distinguished 30-year career as a U.S. Navy bandmaster and musician, he accepted the position of director of bands at Rowan, where he conducted the wind ensemble and concert band, taught conducting and ensemble rehearsal methods, and coached in the areas of music arranging and jazz improvisation techniques. He is recognized nationally as a conductor of bands, clinician, and adjudicator. Pastin also remains active as a composer, arranger, and commercial jazz woodwind performer. As a 30-year veteran of the Navy's music program, Pastin has conducted, commanded, trained, and performed with some of the Navy's most prestigious bands, including the Navy Show Band, where he made 2 consecutive 6-month tours to the countries of South America and West Africa, the Navy Band at Pearl Harbor, Navy Band Seattle, the Multinational and Multi-Service NATO Forces Band in Naples, Italy, performing throughout Europe, the U.S. Naval Academy Band, Annapolis Navy Band, New Orleans Navy Band, Orlando, Florida, and he retired from the Navy in August 1998 as the officer in charge, leader of the Presidential Unit, States Navy Band, Washington, D.C. His performances include special concerts and ceremonies at the White House for Presidents Reagan, Bush, and Clinton, feature concerts at Carnegie Hall, New York, Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and Constitution Hall, Washington, D.C., Meyerson Hall, Dallas, Texas, the Vatican, St. Petersburg, Russia, Tokyo, Japan, Beijing, China, and performance tours throughout Europe and to all 50 states. He received many personal military awards, including the Joint Meritorious Service Medal and the Navy Meritorious Service Commendation and Achievement Medals, the Colonel George S. Howard Award for Musical Excellence, and upon his retirement as the conductor of the United States Navy Band, the Legion of Merit awarded by President William Clinton. In 1996, Pastin was inducted into Phi Beta Mu International Bandmasters Fraternity, and in 1998 he was honored with membership in the prestigious American Bandmasters Association, the professional organization for master conductors and musicians. Membership into this elite organization is considered the highest honor by American bandsmen in recognition for outstanding leadership and achievement in the field of concert bands and its music. John Pastin holds Doctor of Musical Arts and Master of Music degrees in conducting, as well as bachelor's degree with emphasis in jazz performance. He studied at the University of the State of New York, Navy School of Music, American Conservatory of Music, and completed his master's and doctoral studies at Northwestern University and the University of Maryland, respectively. John Pastin is the newly appointed musical director and arranger of the Riverview Jazz Ensemble and the Pittsburgh Doo-Wop Big Band, and he leads a very popular local band, the Doo-Wop Doctors. A 1968 graduate of Stowe Rocks High School and native of McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, he is married to the former Arlene Kosh, also from McKees Rocks, and they have 3 children, Adina, Danielle, and Christopher. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring onto the program Dr. John R. Pastin. And there he is. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm great. And wow, I hope there's enough time for the interview now after reading all that. So sorry.
Oh, there's plenty of time. I'm looking forward to it. It's great to meet you. I failed to say that I had a couple of friends, Kenny Kovac, I'm sure you know quite well, and so many others, Clem Roland, and trying to think, Kevin Clark, so many musicians said, you should have, and it was funny because they said, you should have John Pastin on the program. He's back from the Navy and so forth. He's back in Pittsburgh. And somehow the name Dino Pastin came up, and I kind of confused the two. And I thought when I contacted Dino, I was contacting the guy that was in the Navy band, right? You. And here it turns out that they're two different people, and he's your nephew.
Right.
So
yeah, he's the good looking one. I'm the talented one.
We won't go into that.
No, I'm just joking. He's very talented.
He is. He really is. And we had a great time together, and did his program. Oh, geez, several months ago. And so when I figured it out, I said to Dino, I said, "Could you give me your uncle's phone number?" So he did, and then that's when I contacted you to get onto the program. So it's wonderful having you. I'm very honored to have you on the program. What a career!
I'm honored, and you and I did meet. We met at a birthday party for Marianne Cornetti, and you were performing. You had a phenomenal band there. I mean, you had people coming in and out, and you did an Italian theme, and then you went into some pop music, and I mean, you had a little bit of everything.
Sure.
I usually go to those kinds of things, and I'm very, telling the wife, let's get out of here. But I enjoyed every bit of that birthday party.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it was great.
Very much. And I do remember, you're right, we did meet that day. I didn't have a lot of background of who you were or what you did, but we met,
Good, yeah.
And Marianne Cornetti is a wonderful opera singer, and I had the pleasure of hearing her. I was sitting almost in the front row at the Mets, and she had the lead role in Aida. And my band, not the band that you saw, that was We Three, the full band, but I had a We Three Unplugged, and we went up, requested to go up and play the cast party for after the opera.
Oh,
so
wow. Yeah.
And I played for Marianne many times because in the circles of the opera world in Pittsburgh, and she'd be at parties, and she and I do a few songs together and things, just might be strolling with the accordion or something,
Oh, she's the best.
So yeah, and I'd like to get her on the program sometimes in the future too. So John, let me ask you a question. When did you begin studying music? And what was your very first instrument, and what was your inspiration to start a musical instrument?
Tenor saxophone. And my brother loved playing the tenor saxophone. He had one. He used to do it he'd come home from a hard day of work, and he'd just pull out the tenor sax and start playing. And and I used to sit around and listen to him play. I loved the sound of that instrument. And he turned me on to Vito Musso.
Oh.
And once I heard Vito Musso, I was sold. He was with Kenton, of course, and my brother was a big Kenton fanatic. And I was in a second grade when he gave me a tenor saxophone. It was a huge instrument for me in second grade. I was about 8 years old. And he taught me the scale, but I had to know how to. He said, "Can you spell the word bag?" I said, B-A-G. Can you spell the word fed? F-E-D. And he said, "Now we're going to put a C on the top of that and put those two words together and put a C at the bottom of it. C-B-A-G-F-E-D-C." He taught me to scale backwards.
Oh.
And then he taught me how to finger C on a saxophone and then move one finger at a time to get the scale down. And then eventually I had to play it, forward,
Sure.
which for an 8-year-old was a little bit of a challenge, but I got it. So I remember those days very fondly. And I always was. We have a family of musicians, some professional, some not professional, but we always were encouraged to perform when we were kids. Christmas time, and John, go get your horn. I'd come out. I'd play a song that I learned on the horn at midnight in Moscow. Tapping my foot. I'd be playing it, and they'd encourage me. Then next thing I know, I'm playing all by myself, and they're talking amongst themselves. I go put my horn away, of course. And then my mom used to wake me up and at the Tonight Show. It was Steve Allen back then. She
I'm
would
sure.
hear something that she thought that I would really enjoy. She'd wake me up,
Yeah.
and I'd be up and I should be sleeping, getting ready for school, but I'm listening to these great players. And then I'm watching the TV sign off, and there's always a military band.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I was flabbergasted. I'd be flabbergasted at 1 o'clock in the morning, and at a very, very young age. So.
Wow, that's a great story. That's cool. Yeah. There were similar things with me. My mother was always listen to the radio during the day, and I come home from school, and same thing. She'd say, "Vito, you gotta learn this song. You gotta learn this song." And boom, boom, boom. And they bought me a little woolen sack recorder,
Oh yeah,
a little reel-to-reel woolen sack, and I had it right by the kitchen radio. And then I'd say, well, when that song comes on, let me know, and I'll record it, and then I'll learn it. And that's how I learned a lot of music.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the Stan Kenton thing is another one. I'll have to tell you another time a Vito Musso story. That brings back a lot of memories for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a picture I want to show. This is, of course, you're no youngster here, but it looks like you're playing a tenor right there, huh?
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends that didn't believe that that's me. I mean, it's almost like a total metamorphosis here. I don't know what happened. I used to have hair, curly hair. I was actually in the Navy in this picture, and I'm performing with a rock and roll band. And I think we were in Ohio. I was traveling with the Naval Academy rock and roll band when this picture was taken.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we wore civilian clothes on some of our performances. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And tell me about how you got started into the Navy. How you decided that you were going to go into the Navy for music.
Well, when most kids, when they think they want to go into music, and of course I had that. I'd get the speech from my dad. My dad used to say, if you end up working on a railroad like me, he said, I'm going to be kicking your butt every day until you put a white shirt on and get a real job with a white collar, and I told him I wanted to be a musician. He said, as long as you're the best musician that you can be, he said, I'm for that. My mother was a little skeptical about going into music because some of the professional musicians she knew were drinkers, heavy drinkers. So she didn't want me to be embriagone, That's she used to say it all the time. When you're gonna go out and do these, stay away from the liquor.
Sure.
But yeah, so I think I was in about 8th grade when I when I got really passionate about being music. I was going to be like a lot of other Pastins, go into football, play football, and once you get 8th grade, but I started gigging. I started making money.
Yeah.
So and then later on, I felt that I had. Everyone said you got to go to college. You've got to go. Of course, I auditioned for Duquesne. I auditioned for all the schools in the Pittsburgh area. And I did a dumb thing. I screwed up when I was in high school. I wasn't the best student.
Okay.
And there were a lot of folks like me. I auditioned in Moorhead, Kentucky. I auditioned for at Moorhead, and I made it to Moorhead with a slight scholarship, and that's what we needed. We needed that. We needed scholarship money, and I wasn't going to get it because of because of how I screwed around. So my band director, who I think you knew, Aldo Diani, my high
Knew him
school,
very well. Sure.
yeah. So you have a lot in common with Aldo.
Sure.
Aldo, he pulled me aside one day and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be like you. I think I want to be a band director. And he said, you sure? He said, wouldn't you rather be a player? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, well, what about, have you ever thought about the Navy, joining the Navy?
Mhm.
And he said, it's not that easy. You don't just join, you have to audition. So, I asked him how I did this. And he had a brother at the time who was in the Navy music program. His name was Tony Deaney,
Tony, I knew Tony too. Yeah.
his younger brother.
Yep.
So I actually, he set up an audition. He called his brother. I mean, I was all set to go to Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics and work on airplanes because I had an interest in mechanics back then.
Okay.
But he called his brother Tony and he said, man, you got to listen to this guy and see if you can, find a spot for him. So first time out of town, really out of town, I, took a couple of trains and a couple of buses using my dad's railroad passes, made it to Norfolk, Virginia to take an audition at the School of Music, and I met a Tony Deaney when I got there, and Tony, I stayed at his home. I remember the food that his wife cooked for me that day. But anyway, I went in and I took the audition and I did rather well.
Okay.
So they offered me. They said, "Look, you come in here and do this." Vietnam was going on at the time. He says, "You come in here and do this." He says, "You keep your nose clean and you'll pass all your courses." He says, "You're going to do fine in a Navy band." So I came home and told everyone I'm going in the Navy, and I haven't regretted it at all ever. And in fact, I haven't regretted signing the papers to stay in as a career. It was just a marvelous career.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, all the way around.
I have a couple pictures. This one here, is this when you first went in?
Yeah, that's boot camp. They
Yeah,
wake, they wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning to come down and take a picture. So it looks like I'm I'm half asleep here, but
that's a real
it.
sailor.
I had to live with that picture.
Yeah, that's a real sailor there. That's for
Yeah,
sure. And
absolutely.
this picture here too. That's a very nice shot there.
So
Very.
that's when I became the commanding officer of the Navy band, and I'm at my retirement rank.
Okay.
So I started at all musicians in the Navy start out enlisted. So I went through all the enlisted ranks, all up to E8, which is a senior chief, and then I became a warrant officer for a few years, and then I became restricted line officer, is what it's called, a limited duty officer, and retired as a lieutenant commander.
Okay. Wow. That's impressive. And then you were in Hawaii. This is during the early stages, and this is when the Vietnam conflict was going on. And I have a picture. Let me see this picture here. Show this picture.
Yeah,
It's like a show band, right?
well, rock and roll band, and arguably the very first rock and roll band in the Navy. I mean, right after this, the rock and roll bands became a thing in the Navy, if you will. Every band uh, located throughout the U.S. or in Europe or Japan at one point all had rock and roll bands, and to this day still do. But this was a contemporary music ensemble. We made it a point to learn Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, and I'm singing. I think in this picture I'm singing, and I
Okay.
can mention the guys in the picture, but no one will know who they are. But they're very. Well, I'll use the word prominent uh, military career people, in Navy music program folks.
Sure. Well, we always heard that, when you were in any of the military music programs, that was you spent your life practicing, rehearsing, and performing. And so that was basically your life, and you really honed your skills as best as the best in the world, as far as I'm concerned. They were the great players, everybody.
Yeah. Well, see, in those days, there we well, here's a good example. We're playing Blood, Sweat, and Tears in Chicago music there. Just prior to that, I was in this band playing the stock arrangements, Glenn Miller arrangements. Going into high schools playing Glenn Miller charts, and we weren't well received. But as soon as we started putting this contemporary music together, and which was difficult music. Play difficult music, you become a better musician.
Right.
And that's what we did. The band, we became very proficient at playing, and frankly, we were very attractive to some of the celebrities around town who needed musicians who could read music and still improvise.
That was my next point, that you performed off duty for
Yeah.
a lot of things. Tell us about that.
Well, at first I had to do that because we didn't make much money in those days during the Vietnam days in the Navy, and later on it became a lucrative thing. We made a decent wage, and I'll tell you, my son's a career Navy guy, and he's doing pretty well, actually.
Okay.
But, yeah, everywhere I went, I started in Hawaii. I started gigging. We call it gigging on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we had free time, which our evenings for the most part were free, I would hook up with musicians. I'd take my horn and go sit in with bands, and next thing that led to, hey, you want to gig with us? We need a sax man.
Yeah.
And in Hawaii back in the 1969 and 1970, the club scene was, you could work 6-7 nights a week.
Wow.
You can't do that here now, but we did back then.
Yeah.
And I've done some real crazy things by doing like doubles even.
Wow.
And then going to work at going directly to the Navy base, sleeping on the couch for an hour, and then doing my Navy gig during the day. So yeah, that was a busy time, if you will.
Sure. And in the 70s, you were in Annapolis, Maryland. You were in Seattle, Washington, and everywhere you went at this point, you would always be performing off duty as well. Besides what you did with the Navy.
That's correct. Yeah.
I had some names, just to mention a few. In when you were in Hawaii, you had the Mills Brothers. You played for Frankie Avalon, the Temptations, Sonny and Cher. Then when you were in, I think it was in Seattle, that you performed with Pete Barbuti.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's an awesome jazz player, and you did an amazing amount of traveling. And I have a picture. I want you to talk a little bit about this show band in 1978-79. In this picture here, tell us about this. You're on a white horse.
Yeah. So I was the leader of the Navy show band then. This is a premier show band. So we went from rock bands to show bands. And we literally did a Las Vegas type show. And in this case, we toured all the countries of South America. We had our own airplane. Well, and it was assigned to us with a flight crew. And in this picture, well, let me back up. one of my responsibilities, besides leading the band, writing all the music for the band, writing shows,
Mhm.
was to make sure that the admiral's wife was taken care of. Now, the admiral's wife, we do this special trip around South America called Unitas, and the Unitas meaning united, working together with the navies of South America.
Oh,
The sailors would be out in the middle of the ocean, uh, communicating with one another, and in each different country, the dialects would be different. It would be Spanish and Portuguese when you got to Brazil. And then at the same time that that was happening, we were in countries, interiors, performing in the cities. That picture was taken in Catacaos, Peru, and the admiral's wife would fly with the band.
oh, wow.
We're in Catacaos, Peru, and everybody said, "Okay, Catacaos, Peru. Here's what happens: the city closes down for the day, and they celebrate the band, the Unitas band's arrival, and a a Peruvian band is marching through town playing Sousa marches in honor of us,
Okay.
and that was really something. And then we would carry the U.S. flag. We'd get to a location and they would raise the flags, playing the U.S. anthem and the Peruvian anthem. I had to ride in on a horse along with the mayor of Catacaos, Peru, and along with the admiral's wife. The three of us riding horses. Now,
Wow.
of course, the mayor had his own horse, and the wife of the admiral, she rode horses. She knew how to ride horses. I didn't know how to ride a horse. Never rode a horse.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know what to do. I asked one of the guys in the band who had horses. I said, "What, give me some pointers. What do I need to do?" He said, "No, it's just like you saw the Lone Ranger. Just
Yeah.
tap the horse on the side, and he'll move, and you guide it with the reins." Well, none of that worked. I wanted to go to the right. I pulled the reins on this side, and the horse, all he did was turn his head, and he went straight.
Oh,
So
jeez.
I was headed in this direction, and the parade was going this way. And so the mayor said something to some little kid, and the little kid came down, grabbed him, pulled the horse, put him back in route again.
Oh,
And
that's
the admiral's wife's over here laughing. I said, "I drive a Cadillac. I don't know how to drive one of these things."
that's funny. Oh my. Yeah, that's great. What a story. I want to talk about the Navy show band plane crashes on October 6, 1978 in Santiago, Chile.
Yeah,
And this is a story that, I want you to tell us about this because thank God, unfortunately, the band wasn't on the plane, right?
that's right. In fact, we're pulled off last minute. The plane always we would go uh, down the east coast of South America and up the west coast one year, and then the next year we'd go down the west coast and up the east coast. So and halfway when we got to the Cape, the plane would fly back to for replenishments or repairs, whatever was needed. Then it'd come back 2 weeks later, and then in that 2 weeks we would ride the ship. Okay, so we were just got done riding the ship for 2 weeks in at the tip of South America and Chile, down at the very southern tip, and I met up with the flight crew. He came in. Hey, man, they met our wives in Norfolk, and our wives sent cookies in. I got replenishment of reeds and my Barry mouthpiece. I wanted. So my wife met the flight crew, and they said, I said, "Hey, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll continue our journey here." And they said, "No, the admiral wants us to fly into Santiago, Chile, to do a logistics run. So you are not going to be with us tomorrow. Oh, okay. So we got to sleep in on the ship. And the admiral actually came to my quarters and woke me up
Oh,
and said, "Let's go outside. I need to speak with you." And he said that the plane crashed and hit a mountain and everyone died. So I said, okay. So my first question was, how could that possibly happen? And all kinds of questions. In fact, we had 8-member flight crew, and 20 some people died, and we know who the other folks were besides
mhm.
the flight crew, because what the Navy did is they took people who were going to get out of the Navy or go on leave, and they were flying them to an airport
Oh,
in so that they could catch a plane and go back home.
sure.
Well, they didn't make it.
Oh boy.
What happened when the plane was coming in, and it was there was a lot of fog,
Okay.
and the universal language is English, flying anywhere in the world. So they told the plane to abort the landing, go back up, and make a left. And they did that, and the left, they flew right into a mountain.
Oh boy.
So we got the right and the rights and the left. Whoever told them to turn got the rights and the left mixed up in their language. So it was a language barrier issue.
Okay.
So and
Interesting.
we rode the ship for another 2 weeks, and the Chilean Navy provided a plane for us to
That's-
finish our tour. Actually,
yeah. Yeah. What a tragic story, huh? Wow.
my wife didn't. She didn't know for days. She did not know that we were not on the plane.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the news found our programs and instruments and whatnot that didn't make it, and they hit, and immediately the word came out that Banda Unitas, the Unitas band, were all aboard this plane and no
Um,
survivors. So
that was
yeah,
a
it was
small area.
we call that a close call.
Yeah. Well, John, I have a photo. It was talking about Chile and Vina del Mar. And tell us about this. A lot of people.
Yeah, Viña del Mar was actually just prior to this incident. And
Okay.
that's 40,000 people in our audience.
Wow.
And
40,000. That's
40,000 people. We were on a week after Julio Iglesias. They told me to go out. I had a contact from the embassy who told me to go out and say these words. Now they would actually help me with my Spanish, which I would write out phonetically. And the words were, "I love Viña del Mar so much that I'm going to name my firstborn son Viña del Mar." And that's what Julio Iglesias said just a week prior. So
wow. That's
pull that off of him, and it was quite a hit.
wow.
Yeah.
That's great. And then I have this photo, and this is again the Navy show band right there. Is that in South America too?
It is, and this is our 6-piece. We did a 50s rock and roll medley. And
Okay.
we jump into costume very quickly, and we did the Marcells, and it was a huge hit uh,
Oh,
because all of those. We made sure that we picked tunes that were hits,
sure.
and we did little dance step. They made a comedy routine out of it as well, especially when we got to the coasters.
That's interesting. And so let's talk about during the 80s. You were in Virginia Beach. You were in Naples, Italy, as the leader of the NATO forces band, multinational, multi-service band. That was interesting. And then also in the 80s, New Orleans. And then, yeah. So talk about those particular moments.
Well, when I was at the Navy School of Music, I was the director of rehearsal division there. And
Okay.
I was at the rank of a chief petty officer. I had just left my South America band. Um, I was there about 6 months serving as the director of rehearsal division. Then I got promoted, and the commanding officer promoted me. You know, my wife and children were there, and he said, "Hey, John, hang around. I need to talk to you." So after everyone left, he said, "Ah, you're going to Italy."
Oh,
And I just bought a home. I purchased a home like 6 months prior to that. And he
gee.
said, "Well," he said, "you can refuse these orders if you want." He said, "But man, this is a great opportunity for you." So I became the leader of the NATO band. I left my home in the hands of a realtor to rent it out. Right, that
Okay.
was the first time I did that. Anyway, I went to Italy as an enlisted leader. I was an E8, was my rank in the Navy, and I made warrant officer that same year.
Wow.
And so I served. I served that year out as an enlisted guy, running the NATO band. Now in Italy, it's Allied Forces Southern Europe. So we played ceremonies for visiting, you know, Margaret Thatcher when she came in, uh, people visiting heads of state from many countries. And when they came in, we honored them with their national anthem.
Okay.
The admiral always did a little event at the home, and we'd go there and put a little show on for them. And then we played we went out and did public concerts through all over Italy, which was like a dream come true. So it was a wonderful job. I had 16 U.S. Navy. I had 3 U.S. Air Force, 3 U.S. Army. I had 2 Marines. I had 3 Italian musicians, 3 Turkish musicians, 3 Greek musicians, and 2 British musicians. So large, it ended up being a very large concert band whenever we would put a concert band together, or a marching band whenever we put a marching band together. Multi service, multinational. I would rehearse the band in English and then say the same thing in Italian, and it's because Italian was the universal language. That was the Greeks and the Turks. They all had to learn Italian,
Oh, wow.
and of course, the Americans, if they wanted to do a good job there, they learned the Italian language as well. So, and I was a big show band guy back then, but I also had a desire of uh, to work with concert bands and wind ensembles. So even my wind ensemble, while I would do some legit wind ensemble pieces, we always did special arrangements, which were show busy.
Okay.
Uh, in Europe, they love the old big band classics.
Oh,
So we had a beautiful big band medley. Uh, and they loved American music. They loved rock and roll, and we did all of that stuff there. And man, I performed all over Italy. We every you name the festival, and we played it.
oh,
The first gig I did there was a Castancia festival, was Chestnut Festival. We go out and I'm walking through town, and there are all these booths. Uh, and I'm seeing a guy tear open bread, which was made with chestnut flour,
oh,
tearing open. And this bread was warm, and he's putting sausage and broccoli rabe in the bread,
uh-uh.
and selling it for like $1.50. And then wine. We played a lot of wine festivals.
Yeah.
At this Castancia festival, they actually, I don't know how they did this, but they actually closed the fountain. There's always a fountain in the center of the little towns. They closed the fountain. They had wine coming out
Oh,
of
my.
Yeah, so if you had your glass, you could just fill it up with and it was a nice dry red, you know. It was I wish I could remember that, Tom. It was the very first job I did when I was in Italy. Anyway, I loved it there. I got to meet my family in Calabria, uh, and I transferred out of there in 1984, and they sent me to New Orleans,
Okay.
which was almost like going to another European country. It was a great place to go after Italy.
Sure.
Uh, and when I got there, the World's Fair was going on in New Orleans. So one of the first things I did is I got my senior enlisted guys together, and I said, "What are we doing at the World's Fair?" They were explaining all the future jobs that were coming up. We don't have anything at the World's Fair. So I grabbed everyone and said, let's get in a van, let's go down there to see what we can do. We went we went to the World's Fair, paid the admission, got in, and the first place we saw was the Italian Village. And I said, that's where we're going to start. We're going to go over there. Went over to the Italian Village in uniform, me and all my senior enlisteds behind me, maybe about 4 or 5 different guys. And I talked to the guy who ran the Italian Village, and I said, how would you like to have the United States Navy Band from New Orleans play at your Italian Village? And not only that, we're going to do Italian music.
Uh-huh.
I came there with all this music from Italy, right?
Sure.
And he just said, wow, how much will that cost me? I said, nothing. I said, we're the United States Navy. You don't pay us. He said, we want to play in the World's Fair, and we've selected your place as a good place for us to start. And he said, can I at least feed you? And I went, sure. So we played there regularly until the fair ended, and we were so popular at the Italian Village there that the fair committee actually had us play the closing ceremony.
Wow.
It was just fantastic. But of
Sure.
course, New Orleans was, our big job in New Orleans, besides the military, there's always a military function. And then there's a function of going out into the communities and playing for public concerts. And Mardi Gras parades were huge.
Sure.
So we actually built floats. We didn't march in the parades. We put our bands on the float. So I had the band broken up into like 3 or 4 different units, and they rode the floats through the parades. Um, and then of course we'd put the band together and make a larger unit and do performance at the bandstand on base.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of my units from within was the United States Navy steel band, steel drum band, and so they were extremely popular. New Orleans was a great performance area for us.
And you had a show band there too, right?
Yeah, I was a big show band guy, so I put show bands together no matter.
I have a video, John. Let me play this video, and this is the Navy show band in New Orleans. So
Okay.
let's take a walk. Let's take a look.
When I jump and
fun, huh?
Well, I wish I had some of that energy now,
That was great. That was great. That was I'm trying to think. You say like 84, 85 in that period.
I was in New
Yeah,
Orleans from 84 through 86. So at
yeah.
86, I transferred I transferred to the Navy band.
And then in 1986 to 1990, you're back in Washington, D.C., and you became the administrative officer and then the assistant leader of the Presidential Navy Band.
Yeah,
So
that's that's
talk a little bit about that.
it's the premier Navy band in Washington D.C. and the duty there is a little bit different. Uh, phenomenal. The best musicians in the world, right there in Washington D.C. Not just with the Navy, but the Army band in D.C. and the Marine, of course, the Marine's own, the President's own Marine band. It was right
Sure.
across the street from us, and Army had two bands in the D.C. area. Anyway, the job was big job, very political, and we played at Constitution Hall, Kennedy Center. We played at the White House often. We played at the Pentagon. We did arrival ceremonies at the Pentagon, arrival ceremonies at the White House. And when a dignitary would come to visit the president or a member of his cabinet or a military official at the Pentagon, we were always there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Speaking of that, John, I have a video I'd like to play. And this is, you mentioned the Pentagon, the arrival of when Vice President Dick Cheney arrived. And so let me play this video and the audience will get an idea what you're talking about there. There you go. Wow. So every time a dignitary, a president, vice president, like you say, a dignitary arrived, they had this kind of welcoming, right?
that's exactly right. Yeah,
Wow.
in this case, Dick Cheney was the vice president, and as you could see marching along there, and then the commander of the troops, and then I don't know who the dignitary was. I would have been able to tell by the national anthem that we'd play.
Okay.
But this video doesn't have that.
Right.
I'd have to remember those anthems too. We played anthems from all over the world.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know. So I have a picture. I think it's a very interesting picture with you and Tony Bennett, and I know that you played with him several different times. So tell us first about your experiences working with Tony Bennett, and then also this photo. It's a newer photo than this era, huh?
Yeah, it is. This is I think around 2015.
Okay.
It's right before his 90th birthday, which was televised. Back to the 80s, in the evening, when outside of the Navy, I played with an organization in Baltimore known as the Zimmerel Orchestra.
Oh.
And Tony came to town. I think it was 86. And that was the first time I played for him. I actually was the the union boss on that particular gig. I had to hire the string players, and and he did a big gig at the I believe it was the Hyatt. And that's the first time I played for him. And then later on in life, I was a dean and working at Rowan University. I contacted his agent and brought him to Rowan.
Oh, wow.
He did a performance with our Rowan organization, and very surprised that he accepted the gig, but
Yeah.
I'm very happy that he accepted the gig, and the university community just loved that performance, and of course our faculty and our students got to perform with him. But I did another performance a year before that, just where I brought, or a year or two before that, where I brought Louise Mandrell to Rowan University to actually perform with our wind ensemble, and my nephew Dino came up with her.
Okay.
And that was just a great time. But I got to pose with Tony, and it was great. This was toward the end there, so it was. It was great having him.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I have a picture with you with conducting when Louise Mandrell was there. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's go to the 90s. You were in Chicago, then you were at the Pentagon again, and then Orlando, Florida. So let's talk about the 90s.
All right. After I was the assistant leader of the Navy band, I was accepted into a program where the Navy, they let me out of the Navy for a year, lock, stock, and barrel, and I got paid, full pay, send me to Chicago to Northwestern University, where I worked with the renowned conducting teacher, John Painter.
I know the name for sure.
Yeah, he was like one of the best in the country, and the Navy foot the bill to send me there to get my master's degree in conducting.
Wow.
So, and then you would think that as soon as you graduate from that, you'd come into some conducting job in the Navy, but none were open. So they sent me to the Pentagon, where I was the liaison officer for the Navy band. I actually did a lot of letter writing to congressmen and answered letters to constituents, and I actually did budget requests through Congress and things. I learned a lot when I was at that position. And then from there, a position finally opened up, and that was at Orlando, Florida. I was a commanding officer of the Navy band in Orlando.
And I think I have a picture too. This picture here.
Oh, yeah. At Lake Eola in Orlando.
Yeah. And
that was my full organization. We played at Lake Eola quite a bit. That was a great tour of duty too. You know, I did not have a bad tour of duty anywhere. It was all
wow,
all great work.
Yeah, what a great career. That's just awesome. I have a video I'd like to show, and this one is a fanfare and pathfinder of Panama, and I think this was done in 1995 in Provo, Utah. Does that sound right?
Yeah, did it? Yep, absolutely. I was on tour with the Navy band. I went back to the Navy band as the commanding officer in 1995. So
okay, let's watch this.
Pastin.
What a kick that must have been. Oh, goodness. Here you go. Wow. That's great.
Phenomenal band.
Yeah. Just amazing. What a kick it must be standing in front of that group, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There were
You can't even describe
very
it.
precise, very musical. No such thing as cracking, trumpet sections cracking or French horns cracking or anything like that. It was just
Everything was right there.
absolutely.
Just like a professional symphony orchestra,
Well, they're
the equivalent.
quite professional. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them played in orchestras.
I'm sure. Yeah.
In their free time. So
That's awesome. It said here that besides your performance jurisdiction of the southeastern U.S., you were also in charge of weekly recruit training graduation ceremonies. Performed a lot with the Navy Band for Disney and Universal Studios. That's interesting. Known for entertainment shows presented by the band. Tell us about that a little bit.
well, yeah. So, but we're back in Orlando now, and that was actually before this Provo, Utah performance that just happened. So we're back in Orlando, and every Friday we used to have boot camp in Orlando. It was one of the locations. Now it's just Great Lakes, Illinois, but then it was Great Lakes, Orlando, Florida, and the third one was in San Diego, California. Those two organizations closed, San Diego and Orlando. Okay. And I was the last bandmaster at Orlando.
Okay.
And I remember we were a show band. I always had a show band, always did shows, and our Admiral loved whenever we did our shows. The base closure committee came to Orlando, and the Admiral asked me if I could do a show for them for a dinner, a very intimate setting in the officers club. I said, sure, can I do whatever I want? He smiled and he went, do whatever you like. You got free reign. Good. Wow. So one of the things I did in my show is I put a one-man band together. I had a guy I had a bass drum on his back, and then when he moved his legs, it pounded, and he played a euphonium, and he had a little keyboard that said dun, 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 and he came out playing. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, after you close the bass, this is what our Navy band's going to look like. And well, that was a pretty risky thing to do, actually, but everyone enjoyed it.
That's good. Oh man, that's funny. I have a video. This is interesting, and you performing at the Midwest Music Conference, and you know that in Pittsburgh for many years we had the Mideast Music Conference.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, it was never quite as big, I'd say, or successful as the Midwest, but it was still a nice conference, So anyway, this is interesting because, that's the Midwest. You got a lot of polka country out there, and you do a polka medley. So I want to play this. This is interesting. Let me find this video here. I know. I played all four of those polkas on the accordion when I
I
was a kid.
bet.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Lichtensteiner was one of my favorites too. Clarinet polka. Yeah, they were all great. How about, is it funny? You're playing out in the Midwest and you started with the Pennsylvania polka, right?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you. I had this. I asked one of my arrangers to write a polka medley for me.
Okay. I was going to
But
ask you if that was your arrangement or.
that was the arranger's name is Brian Kidd, phenomenal arranger.
Yeah.
He did a lot of things for the Navy band, but prior to this Midwest Music Conference, I my first tour with the Navy band, we hit Pittsburgh. So here I am coming to my hometown, and I knew I had to do something. Pennsylvania polka is the Steelers tune.
Oh,
So,
sure.
so what we did was I had all the principal and first players play, and the second players I had them pull up terrible towels and
Yeah.
spin them while the song was going on. And it was a real hit in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
So
sure.
the Midwest, I mean, it took a lot of guts to play that medley at the Midwest because the Midwest convention. I mean, there were all musicians in the audience,
Yeah.
some professional conductors, and
Edge. Yeah.
university educators. And here I am playing a polka medley. But I will tell you, prior to that tune, we did the Hindemith Symphony.
Yeah.
Pretty serious piece of music, and I
Sure.
figured I had to lighten it up somehow. So
Yeah, sure. That's great. And I really loved the arrangement because it wasn't like straight ahead polka style. It was a lot of swing things and mixed in with it. And it was just like really interweaved with it. It was great.
Yeah, Brian Kidd.
Very creative, Yeah, definitely. And so then I have a picture I'd like to show. This is you conducting at Carnegie Hall.
Yes.
Tell us about that real quick here.
We were going on tour, and it was the same tour as the Pittsburgh tour because we were doing the Northeast,
Okay.
and we were going to hit New York City. And I asked my tour ops people, if we're in New York City, can we play Carnegie Hall? And the recruiters couldn't get us in. They couldn't get a gig booked there. So I knew that the Marine Band had gone there the year prior.
Okay.
So I called the Marine Band and I said, how did you get into Carnegie Hall? It's a question, how do you get to practice, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, they told me who their contact was. And
Okay.
a guy by the name of Zachary Fisher, who's no longer with us now, but I called Zachary Fisher and I said, I understand that you sponsored the Marine Band at Carnegie Hall last year. I just want to know if you do the same thing for the Navy. And he just said, yes, of course, I'd love to do that. Real patriotic guy.
Uh-huh.
He foot the bill for us to get in there, and we did a concert there, and it was fantastic. It was a dream come true,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, John. I have a video of you playing the overture from the Nutcracker Suite. Is that in part of the Carnegie Music Hall?
No.
program? No.
No, that was in Washington, D.C. at either Constitution Hall or the Kennedy Center. It was either one of because we did concerts at both places. So I'm not sure exactly what I mean. The video might show where it is, and I'll be able to. I might be able to tell.
Let me show the video for the audience here. Wow. I like the E flat clarinet touch. You don't see that too often these days.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
She was a tremendous musician too.
Yeah.
The girl that they showed on flute, she
Yeah.
was from Greensburg.
Oh, wow.
She happened to be from Greensburg. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great and a great transcription of the piece too.
Exactly. And that was at Constitution Hall, Daughters
Oh, okay.
American Revolution, Constitution Hall.
Wonderful, wonderful. So this is the last kind of segment before you retire from the Navy, 1995 to 1998 in Washington, D.C. Officer in charge, leader, and conductor of the U.S. Navy's presidential band. He had toured all 50 states. The first Navy band officer to bring the Navy band to Carnegie Hall, New York City for a special tour performance. And you took the band to Russia. And I have a photo. It's interesting. You took the Navy band to Russia to help the Russian Navy celebrate its 600th birthday. And you did this concert in both St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. Numerous VIP performances and television specials. A White House tree lighting event performing with Johnny Mathis, Keely Gifford, Jack Jones, and Sherry Lewis. So let's talk about this Russia performance. I have this photo. That's right in St. Petersburg Square, huh?
That's exactly, yeah. Our timpanist actually picked that was taken from the timpani seat. He picked up his camera and took that picture.
Okay.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have a picture of our fantastic concert in the square there. Yeah.
That's great. And tons of people, again, thousands of people there.
Exactly. The band attracted a lot, large audiences. I mean, all the halls that we played in, they were packed.
Wow. So in 1998, you had put in 30 years in the Navy as a musician, as a conductor, as a bandmaster, administrator. You did everything. So let me ask you this. After you left the band, it says that you officially retired from the U.S. Navy in 1998 in a ceremony where you were awarded the Legion of Merit Award for your duty as leader of the Navy band, and it was presented by President Bill Clinton. That's really an honor. Wow. And that's how you sailed off into the sunset, huh?
That's it. I went home and I packed up a little U-Haul and drove up to Glassboro, New Jersey. Exactly 1 week later, I started as the director of bands.
Wow. You didn't waste any time, huh?
No.
You didn't want any time off. Otherwise, you would have figured you never got out of the couch, huh?
I worked up until my last day because I didn't want to face it. I kept busy at the Navy band up until my very last, the day before my ceremony.
That's awesome. That's absolutely great. So I have a couple of. So you moved on to this position in Rowan, and I have a picture here. This was the graduation group, and I have this picture here, Professor Rowan, in the university conducting the university band here. Yeah.
Wearing my uniform, I had that tuxedo, and I wore it as much as I could. Still to this day, when I guest conduct, I have one larger made.
Yeah.
Those things, they shrink when they sit in the closet.
They shrink. You're funny. Okay. So let's see. How about this one here? This is the one you were talking about earlier in the program. That's Louise Mandrell. Tell us about that.
Well, I started a series of concerts, an annual series actually. We had a benefactor who loved the music. He loved the performing arts, so she would donate to us every year, and I decided to do a series of concerts in the name of this individual. And we started out, I actually started with, this was the very first one that we did. And through my contacts with Dino, okay, so I flew to Nashville, brought my computer with my Finale program, and I got recordings that Louise Mandrell did with her band.
Okay.
And then I took notes, met with her at her home with Dino, took notes, went back to Rowan and started writing music. I wrote the whole show for her. Flew back to Nashville with my computer, and with my Finale program, I played the music back for her to let her hear what it would kind of sound like. And she said, okay, great, let's do this. So we did a Christmas concert. She came to Glassboro, New Jersey to do that for us. And I was able to bring Dino up too.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So Dino played accordion, and
Sure.
on one tune he went over and played organ. Well, I have a Hammond, portable Hammond.
Okay.
And he played along, and it was a fantastic time. I mean,
And how long were you at Rowan in all the years? How many years were you there?
19 years.
19 years. Wow.
Yeah. So I did 30. I did almost 50 years away from Pittsburgh, and then my wife and I decided, let's move back home.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And here we are back in Pittsburgh. So
Yeah. And so when you came back to Pittsburgh, I'm sure it didn't take much time to get integrate yourself with a lot of local bands and local musicians, because you knew a lot of them years ago, right? And
yes and no to that one, but
okay.
yeah, I'm still meeting people that I should have known. All of you guys that went to Duquesne, the band I'm playing with now, the big band, most of them are your contemporaries.
Sure.
They all know you, you know them, and where in the heck, like Mo Mansfield, I'm sure you know him. Mo asked me one time, I don't know why you and I have never bumped into each other all these years, and we're kind of in the same class, we're contemporaries. And I said, Mo, I was away for 50 years.
Yeah.
I was gone I still get lost when I drive on Route 28.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's not an easy place to drive, that's for sure. We were just talking about that the other day. How we live in Naples, Florida, and it's a simple. I mean, it's a square, and there's 10 ways to go anywhere you want to go, and it's just really simple. And then you think about Pittsburgh, it's like completely, it's A to Z, completely.
Yeah, all the merging and everything that goes on. Yeah.
So I have a photo here, and this is a local group. I see Clem in there, Clem Rowland. Your daughter singing?
My daughter Danielle is a professional singer. In fact, she's a trained opera singer and has performed all over the world. She's going to be in, and as I speak, she's rehearsing with Pittsburgh Opera now for their Falstaff production. It's going to be at the Benedum at the end of this month and beginning of May. But she's been singing jazz and pop stuff with me since she was 15 years old. So she does have that background that she doesn't speak about it when she's in her opera world.
Of course.
There's Andy Yelch there.
Andy, sure. He was on the program.
And Kenny Kovacs.
Sure, playing bass.
And Deb Weibel, drummer.
I never met Deb, but she's been on the program in bands several times. Like,
yeah.
For people,
she does a lot of gigging around the area.
Oh yeah, I have to get her on the program, and I spoke with Danielle, and I asked her if she wanted to be the next Pastin on the program too. And she did.
Quite a story.
And then of course your son Christopher is in the Navy, and he's kind of following your footsteps in a sense.
I like to say I turned over the family business to my son Chris. But it's amazing what, he goes back to, he gets stationed in Naples, Italy in the same band that I led when
Wow.
he was born. And he has a son born in Naples, Italy in the same hospital. And the same administrator that signed my son in also signed in my grandson.
Wow. That's
And,
interesting.
and then he goes to the Navy School of Music. He becomes the director of rehearsal division, which
Wow.
means he's teaching advanced military musicians how to lead bands, how to rehearse, what to look for, and what to fix in a rehearsal. And
Mhm.
that's the job I had when I got promoted. Just like he did the other day, I went down there to help pin on his new anchors. He was promoted to senior chief.
I'm sure a
So,
proud moment for Papa, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And so I'm going to have to at some point I'll get Chris on the program too. Uh, it'll be four Pastins. uh, I have a photo. I want you to tell me about this group called the Doo-Wop Doctors, and that's this photo here. It's a little bit small, but uh, tell us about that and how you got the name.
So come back. I came back to Pittsburgh, and I'm gigging around town. I'm gigging with Clem, and doing jazz gigs, and I always loved doo wop. I love the harmonies. I love performing it. I had a band when I was in high school, and my buddy Alan Condalucci um, uh, was in that band. I came back, and Al and I remained friends over all these years. My kids call him Uncle Al, and
Okay.
we're very, very close. And his wife Liz. So I came back to town. I said, Al, let's put the band back together. And he said, Man, I haven't played bass in 50 years. And like riding a bike. I gave him a bass, and we started where we left off.
Oh
All
yeah.
all these tunes that we did, it was easy to get to get back on the bass and play some of these tunes we did way back when. Well, the group got real popular. It got the people. Yeah, we fuss with the music to make it sound authentic. I've got this voice harmonizer where I'll play a chord, I'll sing a B flat, and I'll play a B flat chord. It'll sound the F and the D along with the B flat.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
when I play an E flat chord and I continue to sing a B flat, it'll sound that E flat chord. So we worked out a lot of arrangements with this small group. Brought my daughter in as a ringer to sing the lead, the upper parts, because we all have low voices. And then eventually got my cousin Lenny Sosimo in on trumpet. So now we're doing Earth, Wind, and Fire. And so music from the 50s through the 70s. And I'm keeping real busy, probably a little too busy,
Yeah.
actually, with this group.
Well,
Because
you have a little local notoriety on the TV. I want to play a little video here with about the Doo-Wop Doctors. Let me play.
Since the 60s, John Pastin and Al Condalucci have been best buddies. Through that, they took different paths, though. After their days at Stowe Rocks High School, life and music has reunited the pair. They're coming together in perfect harmony through their group known as the Doo-Wop Doctors. Take a look.
Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, why do fools fall in love? Why do I sing so gay? Others away the break of day. Why do they fall in love? Tell me.
Really was John's idea to name the group the Doo-Wop Doctors because we both have doctorates. John's doctorate is in music. My doctorate is in educational psychology. And we've been lifelong friends, and we played music when we were kids. When we both retired about the same time, John moved back to Pittsburgh, And he called me up and he said, we're going to get the band back together from when we were kids. And
After 50 years.
Both having doctorates, John said, well, we'll play doo-wop music. It's fairly easy. You know, it's like riding a bike, the bass, it'll come back to you. So John came up with the name the Doo-Wop Doctors. Actually in the Stowe School District. John's 2 years younger than I am, but this is in high school. It's junior high school, maybe 1963. And we started playing weddings and, you know, gigs like that. And then we started playing clubs and other kinds of things.
When I graduated from high school, I auditioned for the Navy music program. That was a well-kept secret back then. I guess it still is. But I played music in the Navy all over the world. And great professional musicians all around me all the time.
Nice. That's awesome. That was a nice publicity shot for you too, and for the group,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, Joan, I want to tell the audience about this photo here. The Doo-Wop Big Band is another group, and this has been around. And I think I recognize a lot of these guys, and Ray DeFay there, and Andy Ultra's in there, and so tell us a little bit. So you're directing this band now?
As of very recently, I'm the musical director, and Deb Weibel, the drummer that we talked about, she's the administrator. She's like the glue that holds everything together.
Wow.
She's tremendous. And I've got all these rehearsal chops, you know. So I just took over rehearsing the band, and I'll front the group on our gigs. But we do it's a doo-wop big band. I'm continuing to write arrangements for the group, and we're also a jazz band. So our next gig coming up in May is a jazz gig.
Okay.
So we're doing big band jazz, and when we're not doing big band jazz, we're doing doo-wop and vice versa. You know, the next doo-wop gig we do, we're going to bring in a vocalist along. My daughter Danielle sings in that group, and another young man by the name of Sam Brooks, phenomenal singer. But we're also going to bring in a guy that is kind of a celebrity around here, Johnny Angel. If you heard of Johnny Angel and the Halos.
Sure.
Jack Jack Hunt, you know him. Yeah.
Oh, I know him well, sure.
Yeah. So I'm writing some arrangements for him right now. As a matter of fact, I've got, I was doing that before we got online today. I was writing out a chart for him. I've got about 4 more things to do for our gig coming up in June. So anyway, that kind of stuff what we're doing. Busy.
Keeps you busy. Well, and you and I have a lot in common, but we have another thing in common that we're both winemakers. I'm a former wine. I have this picture. This brings back a lot of memories to me because I quit making wine in 2019, I think was the last year I made wine. And I made wine for 38 years in a row without missing a beat, and made a lot of homemade wine and loved it. We had so much fun with all of that. And I see that you're doing the homemade wine thing too, huh?
I'm still doing it. I've got two carafes, not
Yeah.
carafes, but carbos.
Demi John. Yeah.
60 bottles that I've got to bottle within the next couple of days. I just did 60 a few weeks ago. So yeah, I keep it going, and a lot of varieties. I might have 15, 20 different varieties of wine. So
It's fun, and it's good drinking too because it's natural. It's fermented grape juice, and you drink. I mean, even good store wines have. I taste the chemicals right away because I've been drinking this pure wine for half my life. So another thing I find interesting. I found a picture with you, and this is your buddy Lenny Sersosimo, playing the button boxes here. And is it Bloomfield?
It is, and that's my daughter over on the left. It's my oldest daughter, Adina.
Okay.
And we're playing for the Columbus Day Parade.
Okay.
In Bloomfield, and that's a button box accordion.
Sure.
And both Lenny and I are honoring our fathers by doing this. My dad played this accordion for up in Norwood, little Italian community in McKees Rocks, and for the baby doll. They bring out a baby doll, and my dad was the accordion player in probably the 40s, 50s, and maybe some of the 60s.
Okay.
And then Lenny's father became the accordionist for the baby doll from 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we both learned how to play this instrument in honor of our dad.
Nice.
We have a family tarantella that we play, and
okay. Well, I played the piano accordion from the time I was 4 years old. And I tried, I guess I was probably in my 30s. And I would take my accordions to New York to be repaired because they had a good repairman up there. And when I would go up there, they had a big room with all these different accordions, and they had button accordions, and I pick it up and I'm trying to play it. I couldn't play. I mean, it was like so mind blowing for me,
And I'm that way with the piano accordion. I mean, I do a gig for the Little Sisters of the Poor in our area here, where I will play the piano accordion. I have one here, and I'm just chording on Saints Go Marching In, and with 3 chords, and you'll find me squeezing or pulling, and with the phrases. Well, you don't have to do that, but I'm so screwed up.
The button accordion is like a harmonica where you blow in, you get one note, you suck it the other way, you get a different note. Right. That's what confused me. Well, John, this has been great. I have one last video I'd like to show the audience before I let you go. And this is some excerpts from Eternal Father, Strong to Save.
Oh, boy.
So let me play this for the audience, and you can tell us a little about afterwards.
Audio? Is it audio or video?
It's video. No, I put some pictures with it too.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay.
What a band.
What a band is right. Well, that's wonderful. John, it has been such a pleasure to have you on. And you've had such a tremendous career. Just great for me to hear all these stories and hear your journey from the time you were young all the way through your Navy career, your career as a professor, and now what you're doing gigging. It's got to be a little less stress now, the things that you're doing, than when you were doing all that conducting and everything, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
I got rid of my watch the day I retired as a professor, but I'm still using a computer for my appointments. But I don't attend meetings anymore.
That's it. That's good. That's good. That's wonderful. You've had a wonderful career, and I congratulate you, and best wishes for continued success, and keep making music, man. It's just awesome.
Thank you.
And wine too. That's
And
important.
wine.
That keeps you in balance. I just tell people, you know, I worked hard as a musician and teaching and playing and doing all these things. I said, but you know, you got to have a balance in life, right? You got to live life a little bit, right? Play hard and work hard. Work hard and play hard. That's great.
Thank you so much, Vito. I'm so honored that you contacted me for this, and that you know, to become a part of this with all the great musicians that you've interviewed, and you know, I feel so wonderful that you put me in with those.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're quite welcome. And as I said, great pleasure. So you have a great rest of your evening. And thank you again for being on the show, John.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. And there you go. Another episode of Memories of a Musician with Dr. John Pastin. And what a talented and great career that John has had. It's great to get to chat with him. Looking ahead to next Wednesday, April 15th, be sure to tune in to meet my special guest, two-time Emmy Award-winning composer, music director, and producer, Scott Anderson. Scott Anderson, known as one of the Pittsburgh region's most sought-after keyboard players, is musically diverse, able to transition from jazz to big band to Broadway to straight-ahead rock and roll without missing a beat. Scott Anderson has backed up national artists such as The Temptations, Kristen Chenoweth, and has famously served as the organist for the Pittsburgh Penguins. You can currently catch him performing with Pete Hewlett in the duo Pete and Scott, with the Beatles tribute band Come Together Pittsburgh, and the producer of the Holiday Jam concert series. The episode will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Scott Anderson on Memories of a Musician on Wednesday, April 15th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining me, and have a great evening.